uploads after, I had a live stream and I was like, I don't know if anybody will come watch. And then I'm like, there's 2 people. This is incredible. This is great. I scrubbed the whole thing. I don't know what I did. I couldn't see anything. I can't see the chat. Everything's a mess. It's a disaster. So we're doing well. I'm going to start this off by just talking about metabolism because I feel like I've been getting a ton of questions from my clients, especially lately. So metabolism is not a thing, right? It's not like an organ you can like point to and you're like, that's your metabolism. That's not kind of really how it goes. So your metabolism is more like a total and kind of a collection of all of the processes of your body. So if you think about your body as having like a daily budget, that's kind of how many calories you have to spend on those daily processes. And something that's really interesting is a lot of these processes you don't think about. It's not just moving around, it's not just exercise, it's things like your brain. Your brain takes up a ton of calories. And I think that it's really interesting. I forget the exact statistic, but there's something about chess players. And when they master chess players go these big tournaments and they play for hours and hours, how many calories they burn from just thinking and being so strategic, and they're so focused, that is a mass part of your actual calorie burn. So you have to think about it like that too. Your body only has so many calories to spend, and it depends on how much you're eating, right? So if we eat less calories than we are, actually burning day to day, including those processes, all of a sudden, yay, we're losing weight, right? And if we eat more calories than we're burning, obviously we're going to gain weight. So something that I think is important, I feel like there's a person here. I see you. If you have a question, I don't know if I'll see it, and they're gone. Anyway, so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the way that your body actually spends these calories and what happens when you diet, because it's not the starvation mode that I feel like everyone sort of talks about. When you start to take in less calories, what your body does is it deems certain functions more essential than other functions, right? So if you are somebody that, say you're relatively sedentary, you're still going to burn a lot of calories just because your body is burning calories through these processes that just exist. Your essential processes, things like your brain, your heart, your lungs pumping, all of those types of things, that's going to be deemed essential by the body. So your body isn't, when you diet, going to down-regulate those things. That's not what we're going to do. Your body is going to affect things like your sex drive, things like how shiny your hair is, things like how much you fidget, how much you walk around on a phone call. So things like that start to down-regulate. And this is sort of where I think like the bastardization of starvation mode came from. It's just metabolic downregulation. All that means is that your body is going to basically take in how many calories are we getting every day on average. If most of the time you're getting enough calories, all that, your hunger is going to regulate, those non-essential functions are going to operate better. What happens when we diet and we sort of decrease the amount of calories day to day, all of a sudden your body has less to work with. So things like your sex drive, your hair being shiny, all of these non-essential things downregulate. Then we're at the end of the diet. Now we're burning less, and this is where everyone gains the weight back, right? So when you gain all the weight back, what happens? It's not because you did anything crazy wrong, you just went back to sort of normal life, right? So when your metabolism is sort of downregulated at this point, we're not fidgeting, we're not doing these things, all of a sudden we're in a position where we have to maintain that unless we sort of undo it. When we undo it, all that is a reverse diet. So a reverse diet is going to look like slowly adding calories back in just a little bit at a time. Then we can eat more and maintain a lower weight, which is obviously a lot easier. And if you're at the end of a diet and you're only eating, 1,300 to 1,500 calories, it's a lot harder to maintain your weight if you are having to maintain that intake forever. So if you are able to slowly increase that, slowly over time, your body starts to allocate those calories instead of just kind of figuring out where the next calorie is going to come from. All of a sudden it has more to work with. If we do this slowly enough and we've kind of down regulated over the course of a diet, your body's just going to sort of up regulate those functions again. So all that's going to happen, you get your sex drive back, all of those things. But then all of a sudden what happens? If we're slowly adding calories, we're not gaining weight because our body is allocating those calories back to these functions that have sort of down regulated over time to save calories. But we have to kind of do it slowly, or if we just go right back to the way we were eating, obviously we're going to gain weight. I hope nobody is asking questions because I don't know if I can see them. I hope that you guys are having a good time. If you can like this is my first live, so thanks so much. Let's talk about the end of a dieting phase. So, right, you've now reverse dieted, you're back up to like a maintenance phase, but you're still not quite where you want to be, right? when you are in that place, it's so hard to be patient, but I really, really recommend spending at least a little bit of time in maintenance. What that's going to do is it's going to allow you to sort of have the reverse dieting effect where slowly you're getting to kind of take in more calories, you're not gaining weight as easily, your metabolism is going to be in a really good spot. And again, your metabolism is just kind of a total of all of these functions in your body working together. So it's not something that you can point to, but it is all of those things that are affected when we diet on really low calories. So if we can, at the very end of that maintenance phase, now be eating 1,800, 2,000, well above 2,000, especially for men, that is so much easier to start with than if you're starting a diet and you're already eating 1,200 calories a day and you're not losing weight. Your body's sort of adapted there, and it's like, how are you going to maintain now eating even less calories than that? That becomes very, very difficult. So I think that's where a lot of people get tripped up in their diet, and I think that's why a lot of people, like, all diets fail and people end up back at square one. It's not that you did anything like necessarily wrong. It's more that there were probably certain parts of that diet that worked really well for you, and you should take note of those. It's not that every diet is bad. It's that it may not be the whole package we're looking for, and if you're like me, you've probably tried a million diets. So what I've sort of done over time is I've taken all of these diets that I've seen and tried and done and just failed over and over and over. And from there, I sort of just gathered the things I liked. I do this with my clients, and it's called a success list. And I think it's basically the easiest way to write your own diet plan, like your own plan for success. Over time, if again you're like me, you've tried a lot of shit. So you know these parts worked, these parts didn't. If you can take notes of very, very specific parts that worked for you and sort of just have a running list on your phone wherever you can see it. Some people have it on their fridge, and that works really well for people. But if you, like, say you know if you drink half of your water before noon, you're way more likely to reach your water goal at the end of the day. That goes on your success list. Say you know having turkey wraps around to just like grab and go. If that works for you because the kids need to be dropped off, I don't know, whatever. That goes on your success list. Like, all of these things become so much more important because they're adapted to you and your life already, and it's all about the things we've already tried. And if you think about it, a lot of us don't keep track of those things, right? So like, I've tried a million things. I'm sure that there were certain parts of certain diets and ways of doing and lifestyle that worked fabulous for me. I'm sure they did. But at the same time, I didn't take note of every single thing along the way. So if instead of just kind of spinning our wheels and trying diet after diet after diet after diet, if you can sort of reflect and be like, okay, I've tried all of these different diets. This part of South Beach worked for me, like really, really well. I don't recommend South Beach at all, by the way. Do not endorse. With that being said, I also tried keto, and honestly, I didn't really like any of that, but I did figure out that I can eat more protein in a meal than I thought I could. Like, I can increase my protein intake. So those types of meals I should probably add back in. Then you know that maybe you did whatever, IIFYM, and you're like, okay, I know that I can fit in certain desserts, and that actually helps my compliance a lot. For a lot of my clients, their success looks like a list of things that are really separated into like 3 sections, give or take. First section is habits, right? So the first thing is basically, I have to get up by X time, I have to work out on XYZ day, I have to blah, blah, blah. Those things are very personal to like your routine. Then I think the next category is typically like grocery type items, like things you need to keep on hand or work really well to keep on hand. So for example, like having turkey wraps in the fridge, if that really works for you because you can grab them really quick and go, that's something that goes in your success list because so you can remember that. And then when things aren't going as well, you can look back and go, oh, when things were going really well, I was doing this. That makes a lot of sense. So when we're talking about like the third category, it really is timing. So if you know you have to get half your protein in by noon, that's probably a really good one to go by. If you know your water intake has to be this amount by this time, that's really important. So you figuring out what's important to you and what worked out of maybe all of these failed dieting attempts that we've all been there, and shout out the diets, like the craziest diet you've done. I don't even know if I can see the chat, but it's so important to take the things that did work from these things, right? So if there's something that you're like, I really did well on that and I didn't feel hungry, I didn't, like, kind of go through the check boxes. Did it fit with your life? If you're a person that loves to have dinner with your kids, you're probably not going to work out at 5 p.m. every single day. Like, that's not going to work with your life. If you are the opposite, like if you like to spend mornings with your family or your wife, whoever it is, then you're probably not going to want to sacrifice that routine that's already in place. Learning to actually piece and puzzle piece a plan with the life you already have, I think that's why my clients sustain their results. I don't think it's anything magic I'm doing. It's really a matter of figuring out what that means to you. And for a lot of people, there's these non-negotiables, right? I'm always going to have a glass of wine at dinner. I'm never going to work out at 4 in the morning. Like, and that's okay. It's more so, how big of a deal is that thing? And what do we then need to offset it with? So if you're a person that wants to have wine every night, that is totally okay. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. But you also then may be a person who has to tighten it up when it comes to how many carbs you're having elsewhere, how many extra calories are coming from desserts, things like that, that you may need to just dial back a little bit more than if you weren't having the wine. It's mostly about identifying what those things are, what's worth it, what's not worth it to you, and then going from there. To what's worth it to me is not going to be what's worth it to you. But if you can figure out what's worth it and what's not, you no longer have excuses for the things that aren't, because they're already established. So if your priorities are, for example, like you need to have a glass of wine, you always are going to want chocolate at this time of the month, whatever. If you set amounts for those things and those are your non-negotiables, you're like, these are the things that matter. Cool, great, make a list. And then everything else that you're like, oh, but it's my hamster's cousin's birthday and it's really sad because we need to eat the pie because my grandma's aunt made it and it's just awful. Like, those things go away because you're no longer questioning it, right? So I think that that's a really important part of it. It's figuring out what's important to you from all of the experiences you had, taking the best ones and kind of piecing them together. And then you're probably going to be off to a really good start. I think other than that, the most important things you can do overall, lifestyle, kind of general picture. If you are not sleeping at least 6 hours, I know that like you work a job and like I work a job and I'm tired and sometimes I like revenge time and I'm up until like midnight or later and I have no business being up till midnight or later. There's no reason for it. If you can, in a fat loss phase especially, it's going to make your body a lot more comfortable. And all that means is things are just going to go smoother. There's not going to be, oh my God, I'm just so foggy. Like, things just operate a little bit better. With that, if you are getting every workout in, but you are never hitting your step goal, that's a problem. That's a really big problem. And you don't have to hit 10,000 a day every single day. I know that that's an intimidating goal for most people, especially if you work at a desk job and like you're stuck at a desk. It's so freaking hard to get like 10,000+ steps in a day. I empathize with that. I really do, especially if I've been working from home more, but it really is important to get that minimum 4,000 or 5,000. Like, that is bare minimum. Below that, like, you're really in trouble, especially if you're trying to lose fat. Like, that is something that is so important. And I don't think that people realize how much of a difference non-exercise activity really adds up to be. It's a really big deal, and it doesn't really get justice, I think, in most of, because everything's like a fun, sexy workout. Everything is this like TikTok ad that everyone's moving really fast. It's not just the most intense parts of your movement that are making the biggest difference. It's actually probably the least intense parts of your movement. If you are walking around most of the day, if you live an active life, that movement adds up to be so much more calorically, like how much you are burning, than anything you could do in the gym if you're just living an active lifestyle. Like, you have so many other hours outside of the gym. If you don't work out at all and you live a super active life, you're probably going to be healthier than gym person. Like, it's not a like an exact science by any means. However, I will say that if you are not moving at all outside of the gym, it's going to be harder. It's going to be a lot harder to lose weight. Next, hydration. Hydration is one of those things that, yes, it's super important to literally how your body functions, but no one really cares about that. They care about, like, will it help me lose weight? And yes, it will help you lose weight, but not because it's like doing anything crazy. All it's doing is, yes, helping your body work its functions a lot better, but staying hydrated also just helps you actually identify your hunger signals a little bit better. I think that there's hunger like noise, and then there's your hunger voice, and sort of the more we diet, we drown out the hunger voice like quite a bit. Like, all of a sudden, like, we can't really hear it at all. Like, are we full? Are we hungry? It always feels like we're hungry. the noise that we drown out is like, do I want the cupcake? Like, do I want the, oh no, I don't want the cupcake. And we like argue in our head till we don't even know if we're hungry. Like, we're not eating for that reason. I think the more you can begin to listen to your body, the better. I think being hydrated makes that significantly easier, if that makes sense. With that, I think that if you are really, really unhappy, that is tough. I think if you are really, really unhappy and you are low in vitamin D and you live somewhere where it gets really cold and it's winter and you start to feel that drag, that is rough. It's hard to lose weight when you're like slugging around, right? Like you can barely get, I was so been there, like cannot get out of the blanket. I'm like, oh my God, it's 0 degrees out. But I will say, are you serious? All right. I guess that's it for us today. Goodbye. I don't even know how to end it. That's crazy.